Chapter 8. My first indication that something was wrong was that the door to my apartment was unlocked. It was one of those internal locks that were always in the locked position unless you were inside and flipped the latch to keep it unlocked intentionally. Of course, I never had a reason to keep my door unlocked, and having grown up in Philly my whole life, I knew better than to start now. My options: either go back to the goth femme fatale that I left coldly on the curb, or take my chances with whoever was illegally in my apartment. It's times like this I listen carefully to the voice in the back of my head, who at the moment was completely silent, and possibly laughing. I didn't have to linger long and make a decision because the door suddenly flew open and an irate black woman stared at me from across the threshold. "Damn it, Gladys! What the hell are you doing in my apartment?" I pushed her aside and went in to check who else might have been waiting for me. After the day I've had, I could use a little space, and to be quite frank, you're in my bubble here. Gladys's hard look softened. She seemed as though she was planning to tell me off or something, but was quickly reconsidering. "Look, Finn, I didn't want to do this, but I had to make sure the Seekers weren't here waiting for you. You would have been an easy restart for them." My back was to her, so she must have heard me rolling my eyes. "Listen, you little smart-ass punk, someday you'll thank me for looking out for you. I can see the headlines now. Young, talented, nobody musician found dead in his apartment of a drug overdose. Actually, now that I think about it, that isn't even news in this town." She was right, of course. I was a nobody, and random deaths in a big town like Philadelphia are so common that they are meaningless. "I suppose you scared away the bad guys and are going to stand guard over me while I sleep, right?" I said. "No, not if you send us away." "I thought so. Who's us, Gladys? Wherever they're hiding, tell them to come out now."
"Tony's patrolling outside."
I already figured as much. "And who did you think would be waiting up here for me? No, let me guess. Tiffany, right? That nice young lady who has the killer alto voice? Careful, Gladys, your bias is showing."
"She not who you think she is, Finn. And those two thugs she's hanging around with are the real problem. Get your crackerjack head on straight and stop thinking with your lower brain. You're going to find yourself in a world of hurt if you continue."
I was about to lose my cool when Tony walked through the door. No knock, of course. Nice that I have such an open-door policy to random black people in the neighborhood. "You all okay in here?" Gladys nodded, even though I was about to say otherwise. "The charges circled a couple times. I ain't too sure we should stay here. I'm already surprised they ain't charged up here by now. Kinda wish them knuckle-draggers would try it. My mojo just itching for a tussle." "Well, now, I have a rule," I said, "about tussling your mojo in my apartment, so the two of you need to vacate, like, now." Voice raising, tension building, I may be losing my grip. I did make a mental note to laugh later about the tussling mojo line. Tony smirked and looked back at Gladys, waiting for her to make a move. She took a deep breath and reached for her purse. They headed for the door. Tony was a few steps down, and I decided to get something off my mind that I was battling. "Hey, Tony," I said, "what do you know about the mess in the coffee shop earlier? At the very least, you saw the whole thing." Tony stopped mid-stride and turned back with a sly grin on his face. "I just done my thing, man. Cover your thankless white butt. Make sure you see one more sunrise. Tomorrow, you on your own." "What did you do exactly?" I blurted out. "I split the cup and that frozen puddle. That was me. Not too sure who busted the knife, though. Thought that might have been Gladys from outside, but she wasn't even aware anything was going on. She was circling the block looking for more seekers. Any chance you tore the knife apart?" It sounded like he was suggesting that I magically disassembled the butterfly knife and that he was responsible for the rest of the bad time the goons enjoyed earlier. "Nope. I have no idea what you're even talking about." Not entirely true, but I wished it was.
"Please listen, Finn," Gladys broke in. "Those guys are not done yet, and your friend Tiffany," I automatically tensed up, getting defensive, "is with them. They are ready to gut you in the middle of the coffee shop. It don't look too good for you, considering they were prepared to make such a bold move."
I was already regretting what I was about to say, but there was no point in fighting her. Gladys did not take rejection well. All right, come back in for a few minutes and tell me more about these shadow walkers and why they want me dead. Tony practically skipped back into the room and headed straight for the kitchen. I closed the door and found him returning with 2 beers in his hand. I was about to raise some serious hell about the total lack of all propriety when I realized that this was not my beer. Tony must have brought his own. He just winked and raised the bottle. Gladys, feel free to start wherever you think it makes the most sense, I said. I really have no idea what to even ask at this point. I took a pull from the beer, and it was ice cold and pretty good. Some expensive microbrew called Roadhouse Red from a local brewery. A little sweet and malty. Very good, actually. Gladys looked a little flustered, like she hadn't properly prepared today's lesson.
Well, Finn, I should probably start out explaining the whole shadow seeker problem.
I just nodded and drank more beer. Tony was definitely showing a positive trend in the polls.
The seekers, Gladys continued, are the ones who are actively pursuing us. They're just everyday people that have some kind of deal with the Dark Army to do the dirty work. We don't know how they are recruited or what they get in return, just that they're very hard to spot, and we get burned regularly.
So they don't all wear heavy makeup and long trench coats? How do you know who they are?
We know of several of the main ones that don't usually get their hands dirty. They're on the frontline team that just goes out and identifies the sources of the power. People like you, me, all of us here. Their mission is to keep anyone from entering heaven and joining the army of light. It don't matter how many innocent people get taken down along the way, as long as they can restart you before you learn to use the power and teach others to do the same.
My mind instantly shuddered at the prospect of wiping out countless innocent people just to terminate a potential threat, and then it hit me. Like terrorist attacks. Gladys stayed quiet for several seconds, which I took as a sign that I hit it pretty close.
Yeah, Finn, terrorism is the latest tool for eliminating those with the ability to control the power. It's all damn convenient, really. Make a radical group that has no rules except for killing Westerners and then slap a religious label on it, and everyone just accepts it. Everyone knows it's the work of Satan, but no one knows the real purpose or even the stakes of the battle. And let's be honest, the natural response of America is to bomb the hell out of anyone who opposes us. In essence, the devil doesn't even have to do any work once the ball starts rolling. We wiped out so many people killing each other, there's nothing left for him to do.
Wait, are you saying that the devil orchestrated the plan to take down the World Trade Center towers? Again, Gladys paused and took a deep breath.
Not only do we think he was the driving mastermind of the attack, but we were indirectly the cause of the attack.
The room became too still and quiet, as if things being said were causing real pain.
You see, we had a secret group that was growing in strength and numbers that met daily on one of the upper floors of the World Trade Center Tower No. 2. There were 32 people in that group that were killed instantly. And let's not forget the group in Afghanistan that was killed when the American shock and awe campaign. You see, it's pretty rare that the devil or one of his hunters needs to actually pull the trigger. It's so much more effective to have us kill each other.
Sorry I asked. Why am I apologizing again? I didn't know anyone who died in the 9/11 attack, but I must admit I was fairly excited about the ass-kicking we handed out. Not exactly a loving response, I suppose. So, why are they after me again? I asked. It's not like I've been flaunting my powers around town. There was a little smart-ass in my tone.
Actually, you have, Finn, Gladys replied. Why do you think the hospital has such an amazing recovery rate for stage 4 cancers? Come on now, think about it. Why do most people who get chemo at the hospital recover?
I did not like the obvious insinuation she was making. When Nella suggested I had some ability or power to cure people, I thought she was crazy. Science, logic, and facts are all the real heroes when it comes to battling cancer. Plus, all the people who have died before that have contributed to the statistics and our greater understanding of the disease, not some piano-playing punk who desperately needs a clean shirt. I shook my head as I threw back the last of the beer. No, Gladys, I said. I am still not sold that I have some secret ability and that I have been accidentally using it to cure the sick. Tony had come over with another beer. I think Tony deserves some kind of hero status as well. With a nod in Tony's direction, I took a swig, and a mouthful of warm beer hit me hard. Damn it, Tony. Tony was smirking from across the room like he was proud of his little joke. What? You don't like warm beer? Tony asked, already knowing the answer. He held up his hand and breathed out slowly. His breath turned to frost, and the beer in my hand instantly went ice cold. Better? What do you say to magic tricks like that? Well, I said, good trick. Where do you get the magic beer? You have some kind of capsule or something in this one? I know of a few endothermic reactions that could pull this off. Of course, I wouldn't dare drink it then. I smelled the beer and decided to give it a tiny sip. Still beer, just ice cold. That's my thing, Tony said. I can do things with matter that most people can't even imagine. Like that cup of coffee that burst open on the two thugs downstairs. I just split the side of the cup and let the coffee fly free. Then I froze the puddle so the crazy dude slipped. Wait, you're saying you did that? And you were able to instantly freeze boiling coffee? Come on, dude. Yep, something like that. Actually, I heat the bottoms of their shoes so it gets double slippery. Took me a while to figure that. Nella helped me figure it out, of course. Oh, so Nella is your sensei or something. Is she your X-Men instructor? Speaking of which, I would love it if you would introduce me to Mystique. The smirk of confidence slid off Tony's face. I may have gone a little too far, but let's face it, they broke into my house. Tony looked down at his shoes, and I couldn't tell if he was getting pissed or just disappointed that I was such an asshole. Not my problem. I'm not looking to be best buds with Tony, even though he did bring me good beer. I tipped the bottle back to take another swig and found that nothing came out even though it felt full. After a few shakes, I looked down the neck of the bottle and saw that it was frozen solid. My immediate thought was that whatever chemical reaction was started in the beer to make it cold initially was continuing to run to completion, freezing the beer solid. Tony's expression said otherwise. His smirk had returned. Problem, Finn? Try it now. I glanced back down the neck of the bottle and saw that it was liquid again. Did I just imagine it being frozen a second ago? My head was starting to hurt again, and I decided it was a bad idea to drink any more beer, or whatever was in this bottle. Gladys must have seen my angst and jumped in. Let's make a deal, Finn. What will it take to convince you that Tony can control the states of matter with the power of creation? How about, if he can refreeze that beer in your hand, you meet us back at the flat tomorrow to continue talking to Nella. No other conditions, no other promises. My only goal at this second was to somehow wake up from this ridiculous dream and get these two out of my apartment. Okay, I said. Let's make this a little more challenging, though. Tony started grinning wildly and rubbing his hands together, not at all discouraged or nervous. First off, no matter what happens, you two leave me alone and get out of here. No offense, but I need to be alone for a while. Agreed? Gladys nodded. And I've already seen the frozen thaw parlor trick. How about I dump this beer out and Wonder Boy Tony make it vaporize before it hit the floor? The panic look I expected did not materialize. Tony just grinned and nodded. He had one hand out, already pointing in the direction of my beer. His fingers curled slightly like he was holding an invisible ball. Gladys then spoke up. How about we sweeten the deal a little further for you? She reached in her purse and pulled out a $100 bill and put it in my free hand. One drop of beer hits the floor. You keep the money and never get bothered by us again. What do you say, honey? No downside for you. She then looked at Tony and gave him a pointed glare, like saying, Don't you screw up. Tony's smirk slid a little. This suddenly became a good bet. Worst case, I had to clean up 10 ounces of good beer. $100 could buy a lot more beer. The air became very still. I focused on Tony and without warning started dumping the beer. Tony's curled fingers went straight and a sizzling popping sound appeared. Glancing down, I saw steam rising in front of me. I kept pouring, and the faster I poured, the more steam appeared until the bottle was empty. I stood holding the empty bottle upside down in front of me, the last drop clinging to the rim. As if on cue, the drop turned to steam and disappeared. My focus shifted to the dry floor in front of me, and the smell of steamy beer filled my nostrils.
You can close your mouth now, Finn.
Gladys was moving toward the door, and with Tony right behind her, grinning like a fool. As they walked out the door, 10 feet or more away from me, Gladys suddenly turned with a smirk of her own and said,
I believe this is mine.
She held out her hand, and I felt the $100 bill slip out of my fingers. It fluttered lightly between us and landed gently in her hand.
Car'll be by tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, out front.
She started walking down the steps and then called back,
Oh, and Finn.
I moved to the top of the steps and peered down the staircase. Tony was already at the bottom with Gladys halfway down. Tony was looking out across the coffee shop, which was probably closing soon. Yeah? I replied.
Be careful tonight. We can never protect you as well as you can protect yourself. Watch out for goons with butterfly knives, all right?
Right, I replied. Good idea. A thought occurred to me that was yet unanswered. Hey, Tony, I said. Let me ask you a question. He glanced back up at me. You said you made that coffee cup split open, and you froze it so that they would slip and fall, right? He smirked confidently again. You bet. That's my thing, my speciality. What about the knife that flew apart? Was that you too? Tony glanced down at his shoes again, obviously less comfortable with the question. No, that was not me. Not sure how that happened. Maybe just dumb luck. Cheap Chinese product, probably. He turned and walked away, and Gladys followed down the steps. She turned back from the bottom of the steps.
Well, maybe there's an angel lurking around here watching your back. Lord knows you need it.
They were gone, and I found myself standing at the top of the stairs, holding an empty upside-down beer bottle, thinking about creation powers, angels, demons, and where this day went so terribly wrong.